My parents always told me that life is about fairness. But somehow, fairness never included me. When I was 24, I asked my parents for a $70,000 loan, not for luxury, not for a car, not for a vacation, but to start my small tech company, a dream I had built quietly, alone, for years. They didn't even think for 5 seconds, they just said, "It's too risky, you'll fail, you don't need this." But 3 months later, they took a $725,000 loan so my older sister could buy a BMW, fix her credit, and pursue her big dreams that had already failed twice. I stayed silent, I stayed calm, I stayed the daughter they never valued. Until the day they came to my door, begging me, the daughter who didn't need their money, to sell my home, to save them, and that day, I finally realized. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon. Call to action, only once here. Where are you watching this video from? Let me know in the comments. My name is Charlotte Hayes, and I am 27 years old. This story isn't loud, dramatic, or filled with screaming matches. It is about silence, the kind that grows inside you when the people you love choose someone else, every single time. I grew up believing that love was balanced evenly between siblings. But in my home, love always tilted toward my older sister, Vanessa. She was the golden child, a shining crown my parents polished every day, while I quietly learned to become invisible. When I told my parents about my tech startup idea, my voice was trembling but full of hope. I had spent 2 years building prototypes after office hours, learning coding at night, watching free bootcamp videos on weekends. I didn't want money for comfort, I wanted money for a future. But the moment the number, $70,000, came out of my mouth, my father leaned back, sighed, and said, "Charlotte, don't embarrass yourself. This is not your lane." My mother nodded in agreement, tapping her nails on the table as if waiting for me to disappear. That night, I silently packed away my proposal, folded each page, and placed it in my drawer. The house was dark, and the only sound was the whirring ceiling fan, like a reminder that I had never truly belonged. 3 months later, Vanessa announced her plan to reinvent her life. My parents cheered like she had discovered electricity. Within 2 weeks, they mortgaged the house, took a $725,000 loan, and handed it all to her, money they claimed didn't exist when I needed just a fraction of it. But stories like mine rarely explode, they simmer. They gather heat slowly, and as I watched my family pour everything into someone else's dream, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not jealousy, just clarity. A clarity that would become my quiet weapon. I moved out 6 months later, into a tiny room above an old bookstore. The walls were cracked, the windows leaked cold air, and the bathroom door didn't fully close. But for the first time in my life, I felt free. Every morning, I brewed cheap coffee, opened my second-hand laptop, and worked, coding, designing, researching, building the company I had once dreamed of presenting to my parents. Silence became my discipline. I didn't complain. I didn't tell anyone what I was building. I didn't ask for help. People think revenge begins with anger, but mine started with focus. I applied to small grants, entered low-budget competitions, and pitched my idea to strangers because family had already proven they were not my audience. Most people rejected me. Some laughed. A few listened. And one investor, an older woman who saw my trembling voice but steady eyes, decided to take a chance. Her first words to me were, "You look like someone who has been underestimated all her life." She invested $50,000, not in my product, but in me. And that was enough. Enough to start, enough to build, enough to rise. Within a year, my app, built for small businesses, went viral in 3 states. Downloads crossed 1.2 million. Revenue stabilized. And suddenly, the girl who didn't need money, bought her own small but beautiful house, paid in full. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't need them to know. My silence was becoming louder than their rejection. And quietly, life began tilting in my direction for the first time. Vanessa, meanwhile, was sinking. Her BMW payments, her failed business, her extravagant lifestyle funded by a loan she had no idea how to repay. My parents sold jewelry, took extra jobs, borrowed from relatives, everything to keep her afloat, and still, it wasn't enough. One evening, I received a text from my mother, just 5 words. "We need to talk. Urgent." I met them at their house, the same house they once mortgaged for their favorite child. It looked older, cracked, burdened. They sat across from me, eyes swollen, faces pale. Vanessa wasn't there. She was hiding from responsibility, like always. My father cleared his throat. "Charlotte, we need your help." My mother continued, voice trembling. "We're losing the house. We need $230,000 immediately." The silence that followed wasn't angry, it was peaceful. For years, I had waited for them to see me. Now they did, but only because they needed something. I looked around the living room, the family photos where Vanessa always stood in the center. The trophies that weren't mine, the walls that echoed their doubts. My mother whispered, "Sweetheart, you have your own house now, couldn't you sell it and save us? Sell the home I built with my own hands? Sell the only proof of my survival? Sell my freedom?" I didn't raise my voice, I didn't cry. I didn't explain, I simply inhaled, exhaled, and said calmly, "No," and in that moment, the quietest word I ever spoke became the loudest sound in the room. They stared at me as if I had committed a crime. My father's lips parted, searching for words that once held power over me, but none came. My mother's eyes filled with tears, not the soft, hurting kind, but the disappointed ones she used to give me whenever I refused to be Vanessa's shadow. I felt nothing, just distance, a clear, straight line finally drawn between us. My father muttered, "We raised you." I replied gently, "You raised her, I raised myself." Those words were not said in anger, they were simply true. I stood up to leave, but before I reached the door, my father asked, "How did you even buy a house?" As if my success was an accident, as if my growth was unbelievable unless he understood it. I looked at him, not with pride, but with peace, the same way I survived this family, quietly. When I reached my own home that night, I didn't feel guilt. I felt relief, but revenge stories don't end with one decision. Silent revenge continues in the background like slow-burning fire. Over the next months, my company expanded. I hired teams, opened offices, mentored young girls who reminded me of myself, girls who were told they weren't enough. Meanwhile, Vanessa's BMW was repossessed, the house slipped further into debt. And my parents, so proud, so confident, were finally facing the consequences of decades of favoritism. I never wished for their downfall, I only wished they had chosen fairness. Fairness would have saved all of us, but this was their journey now. And I watched from a distance, silently. Months later, my mother showed up at my doorstep. She looked older than her age, her hair unkempt, her eyes empty. She didn't ask to come in, she simply stood there, a fragile silhouette in the night. "Charlotte, I'm sorry," she whispered. Those words, the ones I had dreamt of as a child, now sounded unfamiliar. She apologized for the years she erased me, the opportunities she denied, the favoritism she justified. She said she never believed I could succeed because Vanessa always needed more attention. And then she said the words that settled into my bones. I didn't realize neglect grows into strength, and strength grows into distance. She asked nothing from me, not money, not help, just forgiveness. But forgiveness doesn't come in a single moment, it is a slow, quiet rebuild. I didn't answer her apology, instead, I invited her inside. We sat in my clean, minimalist living room, a home built with my silent years. She looked around, absorbing every detail, as if seeing me for the first time. "Your house is beautiful," she whispered. Everything in my life had been earned, inch by inch, in silence. My mother saw that now, maybe for the first time. She told me my father wanted to apologize too, but pride held him hostage. Vanessa had moved to another state, running from her mistakes yet again. "Do you hate us?" "No," I said softly. Hate is loud, I chose silence. And in that moment, my mother understood the real weight of what they had lost. Not money, not a house, but me. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. I didn't hug everyone and close the story with warm music. Real revenge, silent revenge, looks different, it looks like peace. Over the next year, my relationship with my parents became distant but polite. They never asked me for money again. I never offered. But something had changed. They listened when I spoke. They looked at me, not through me. They no longer compared me to Vanessa, because now, there was no comparison left to make. My company continued to grow, reaching milestones I once believed were impossible. I hired women with stories like mine, building an environment where quiet girls didn't have to beg to be heard, where talent mattered more than favoritism, where dreams didn't need permission. One afternoon, as I stood inside my office, sunlight cutting through the glass walls, I realized something powerful. I didn't need to defeat anyone, I didn't need to prove anything. My success was my silent victory, not loud, not flashy. Just calm, just mine. I walked outside, letting the breeze hit my face, feeling the soft hum of the city below. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the girl who needed validation. I wasn't the second choice. I was simply Charlotte Hayes, whole, complete, and finally free. And that was the quietest, strongest revenge of all. This is Revenge Book. Where are you watching this video from? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more silent stories of strength and transformation.